Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to another Monday night session of To an Imperfect Union, presented to you by the political conscious of West Coast Steeler fan. Let's get all of our little commercials out of the way here. Uh, I am J.E. King 3, better known as West Coast Steeler fan on some social medias. You can subscribe on here on YouTube as well as donate. Our Cash App is, as you can see, $ JE King 3. All proceeds go toward the improvement of our podcast. With that being said, uh, let me see if once again might be having a little technical difficulties here, but let's see. Okay. Okay. Um, hopefully, our guests will be coming in soon. But once again, I had contemplated starting this off talking about Ye or Kanye. But as I looked upon a lot of the political shows today, it seemed that a lot of the concentration was on the former president, Barack Obama. And they showed him in different places, of course. Michigan, Minnesota, no, excuse me, Wisconsin, uh, and Georgia. And as I was listening at the president, I was really wondering because I don't know if you want to consider them props, but it also seems like to me that there was a certain demographic that they wanted to show in back of the president. And this demographic in back of the president was a lot of youngsters. And of course, he was speaking at an engagement at a, HBCU, so that's understandable that his uh, audience would be of a younger age. But then I thought to myself, the perception of age within this generation. To a lot of generations, age might have meant respect, but I'm not sure if that's true of this generation. And as I looked back there, I mean, it's been at least a decade. Well, no, yeah, since Obama's been president. And I thought of the influence that age can have on younger people. And I was thinking, is there a genuine message that this younger generation will accept from a former president? Because unlike some other races, our generation tends to want to think a little more for itself. It's not interested in grandma's politics or, in some cases, even their father's politics. Um, I've pointed out before uh, that we no longer can count on a household vote. You might be Democrat, your wife might be Republican, your daughter might be a libertarian, your son might be a progressive, and where we welcome the diversity, is it one of the things that has one of the tools that has been used to separate us into different factions? Now, I appreciate the work of the former president, and I think anyone 50 and above appreciates the struggle that it took to get Obama to the presidency. But can I say the same for the voters between the ages of 18 and 35, maybe even 40? So I'm wondering if the strategy by the Democrats is helpful. Would it have been easy? Would it have been better if we could have more candidates closer to their age in these Senate races and House races that we want the Democrats to maintain or even take over? Uh, Let me see. Let me try someone else here. Okay. Um, was hoping to get some of my people from Minneapolis here. Anyway, um, as I was saying, have they used Obama effectively, or do we find these candidates as being, I don't want to say irreproachable, because I think all of them can be approached, but have we given them the tools to reach our young people, or what are the tools that they need in order to reach our young people? Maybe that should be maybe that should be the question. I keep hearing that inflation should be the topic upon which the right should run on. But here in California, the price of gas has dropped almost $1. Foodstuffs are going up, but then, once again, referring to here in California, where a lot of stuff is grown, between the drought and the fires, there has been a decrease in agricultural products, which has led to an increase in demand, which we know an increase in demand leads to higher prices. That's economics 101. So you don't need to have a doctorate in math to explain the rise in cost of food. But then in states other than here in California, where we have made the minimum wage $15 an hour, which is also ridiculous, because if you live in San Diego, you cannot live off 40 hours a week times $15 an hour. You would have to have you a grocery cart and a tent, because the average one bedroom is over $2,000 a month. Those things that we used to call efficiencies are now called studios or one bedroom, and they fetch at least $1,000 a month. So a $15 an hour job barely gets you to the poverty level. And if you have a family and kids, then both of you have to work, maybe the older son, in order to make ends meet. If you have a car or two, plus your utilities, boom, bam. Most landlords, if they can, are raising the rents. So it's the expenses have been rising ever since I moved out here in 2003. And we also saw the same rise, if you want to go back further, when Reagan was president, when either the Bushes were president. So this argument is one that doesn't hold water, but it can be taken to the polls if you need an excuse. Now, let me just pull up my little agenda here. Okay. As you know, today the Supreme Court took up affirmative action uh, in North Carolina and at Harvard. These were two test cases. You can check them out. Go on the web and you can check them out. Now, my question was, do you think that the Supreme Court of the United States will also overturn affirmative action in education after 40 years of legal precedent? And judging on their past and the conservative majority, I think they will turn it back. Now, what will the effects of that be? Um, I can't say that it's something that we can foresee overnight. Um, but in the long run, I think that it is another tool to be used by the establishment as an excuse, just as uh, the excuse for not teaching slaves not to how to read, because knowledge is power. We all know that. Whether well, uh, even in the younger generation, knowledge is power. So there are times when we need to exercise this power, and I'm not sure exactly how much of an effect this will have on black education in the future. But I see Dr. Casey is here, and we missed her last week, so I have to get her in here now before she disappears on me.
Now don't do that.
How are you doing tonight, Dr. Casey?
I'm doing all right. Last week I was out of it. I think I was sleep early last week too. I just wasn't feeling well.
Well, wait a minute. Now, hold on. Now, I see there is there a little color there? I see a little difference in the hairstyle or something there.
Oh, my hair been colored for a couple of months. I had did it earlier. I curled it because I did a little small photo shoot in my little photo. I have a photo room in my house where I went and bought some backdrop and have lighting and everything. So sometimes when I'm bored at home, I do some little modeling in the comfort of our
Hmm.
home.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to try. I have all kinds of little visions here dancing in my head, but I'm not going to get into none of those. I'm going to be no. Anyway, uh, there was something else that you mentioned. You were talking about your video. Weren't you on a video not too long ago? But we didn't get a chance to see it. I've been trying to see if I could, run around the internet and find it anywhere.
Yes, I was. in a video. I made a special appearance in a Good Love video. It is by City Girls and Usher, produced by Mr. Hanky.
Ah, okay. Can we find it on the YouTube anywhere? I mean, on YouTube anywhere? I mean,
Yeah, if you look up the video, it has over a couple of million views already. It's City Girls and Usher Good Love. If you look it up, you'll be able to find it.
okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little politics here. Uh, things have been kind of hot in your state,
Hmm.
and
And I have some controversial views.
okay. On Mr. Walker.
Well, no, he's an idiot.
Okay,
He's
okay.
an idiot. He lied so much, and then that stunt he pulled with that fake ass badge was just like, come on, bruh. Like, come on.
You know, uh, I have one of those little passes myself, and I'm an ex-con. But anyway, that's that's neither
That's a
here
whole nother
nor
story.
there.
You
Yeah,
you are
you
not
know,
doing anything illegal with that thing, okay?
no, 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 no.
Make sure we
I, I,
clear that up.
I look. I am much too old to go to jail. There are other
Right.
things that I could do with my life at 75 years old. I did all
Oh
that
God.
shit when I was younger, so I'm kind of done with that. But I was, even though everyone knows how I feel about religion, I just had to show everybody that video uh, that I sent from the other pastor. We don't need no Walker. I thought
Yeah.
that you know,
My
but
my controversial views is more having to deal with Stacey Abrams versus Brian
yes,
Kemp because
yes,
Stacey she has a lot of inferences on LGBTQ plus community views for school age children, and I am so opposed to that. I really hated the fact that her whole campaign for at least a month and a half was pro-abortion. I am not a abortion person unless it's for medical reasons because I know a lot of people that use abortion as a form of birth control instead of it being like I really needed abortion, I really messed up or something like that. They're careless and then they use abortion like plan B. So, I already voted. I did not vote for governor because I don't like what she's saying that she wants to do in some areas. And I'm not totally opposed to everything that Kemp has done either. So I'm gonna let the other people make that determination because I feel like it's like voting for Joe Biden again. You know, it's a whole lot of undercover things that they not really saying, but they plan on doing. That's how I feel about Stacey. Now definitely I don't like what we see as voter suppression that has gone on in Georgia up under Brian Kemp. However, I will say that over the last couple of days, it made me think now that we see that Trump had so many people doing voter fraud, there are some parts of what Brian Kemp did as far as some of the requirements that could be a response to what he knew was going on with Trump. Because a lot of the things that Trump was doing um just was literally breaking the law and doing everything almost that he Brian Kemp seemingly was trying to prevent more so than preventing African Americans from voting because if you legit then you should be able to go and get ID and all of that. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do those things. So yeah, I'm not a real big Democratic uh chooser like that. I think that they keep us kind of stifled. And yeah, so I'm not for everything that Stacey proposes, and I'm not against everything that Brian Kemp has done because when you think about guns and stuff like that, it's a lot of black people that couldn't get guns or carry guns because of whatever they may have done in the past. That some of those background checks will prevent black people from owning weapons. But if you're not really tapped in and you just go for the headlines, you wouldn't think about it like that.
Let's see, let's talk about that a little bit because I consider myself an independent,
Hmm.
but it does seem to me that the candidates that I vote for tend to be more democratic because I find very few Republicans that had the same that I feel had the same values that I do. Now I don't have a problem voting for a Republican if our values coincide. But I would not be now, in the case of Georgia, your state, you know more about that than I do. It would be kind of like asking you to come out here in California and choose, to tell me what a good job, the governor, my governor's doing. But in a state like Georgia, where you see, uh, well, let's see. Okay, let's go back to once again, kind of my travels through Georgia. Now, I haven't been to Atlanta per se, but I have been through some of those little country towns going down through on my way down to Florida and whatnot. And there are places where I do think that we're still fighting the Civil War. But of course, out here in California, I think we're still fighting the Civil War too. But my question is, do you think that letting someone else choose the governor of your state, whether you have differences between one or the other, do you think that it's a good idea to let someone control your vote or your destiny in your state?
I Nobody is controlling my vote. I voted. I just didn't vote for
For
governor. I voted
governor.
for everything else. I definitely voted for Warnock, um, because I couldn't stand to not vote and let her show, that we're not doing that. But this is the thing. It's kind of like with the presidential vote. Anytime that I do not vote in a certain bracket or category, I don't complain. Whatever happens, I just roll with the punches because the same way that I feel about Stacey Abrams right now is the same way that I felt about Joe Biden. And you know what Joe did? Disappointed everybody that voted for him because they was black.
Well, see now, and I'm glad you mentioned that because the way that you felt about Stacey was the way that I felt about Barack Obama during his first term when he
I
first
mean,
ran.
but let's be clear, Barack didn't do a whole lot. Now, I think that he was limited in the ability of what he could do because of one, the amount of chaos that followed him just being a black man in the first black man in office, that we recognize anyways. But then also, that they was cutting down, even the Democrats was cutting down shit that he was trying to propose. So he was at a loss no matter which way. And it was simply because he was black. When you got to Joe, Joe sold a whole bunch of false hopes and goals and things. But this is the thing. A lot of times politicians tell you what they propose and what they want to do, but normally they don't have the ability to actually do
Right.
those things. They're just
Right.
telling you what they think sounds good. And I fell for it. I feel like I voted for Hillary when she won against Trump, but they selected Trump. Um, but I didn't really want to vote for Hillary. I voted for Hillary because I felt pressure from the black community that I needed to vote for Hillary. But I didn't vote for Joe. If
Hmm.
if Joe ran again, I still wouldn't want to vote for him because he's the bullshit.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later down the line, but definitely want to talk about that. So, um, one of the things that actually disappointed me was the fact that Obama chose Joe for his vice president. Now I understand why he did it because he needed he needed that vote. I understand that, you know. But I found myself kind of like you, where should I vote for none or should I vote for one?
Listen,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
I am not one that's going to vote for the lesser of the two evils. Evil is evil. I don't want none of the evil to be, you know what I'm saying, on my, like, if God is up there tallying who people, you know what I'm saying, evil versus evil. Well, shit, she didn't vote for none of these evil motherfuckers. So, I'm gonna be good. That's how I sleep at night. But and then like right now, it's a whole bunch of I told you so's. I could just post all the things that I said. Like Joe is full of crap. He's not gonna do none of the things that we need him to do for real, for real. He's full of crap. And everything that I said came to pass. So when I look at Stacey Abrams, like the things that she's proposing aren't all good. Like it sounds good, on the surface level, but it's going she's saying that she's going to do a lot of things, put more financial things, and do a whole lot of stuff that's not going to raise taxes, but it take tax money to do it. So where she's going to get this money from? Like where she walleying at? And if I can be completely honest, Keisha Bottoms kind of, she disappointed me so bad in the way she handled being mayor of Atlanta, to where I don't know, I don't want to say any black woman could sustain a high seat, but if they were not previously prepared, then just running just to be running is not cool. Just because you can go out and you can campaign does not mean that you're fit for office. So I am more looking at who actually knows how to run some shit. Like if you ain't never ran a business, because running the state is like running a business. If you ain't never ran a business, then you might not be able to run the state. It's not like just campaigning. It's not like going and getting people to vote. You got to make some hardy decisions, and then you got to be able to stand on those decisions. And yeah, again, I am not excited about what we see as voter suppression, and I say it like that because there are things that information that we're not privy to. So if you got to do something that throw everybody else off, but it's for the best interest of them, even though they don't understand it, then I'm okay with that. It's a lot of things that I might do that my children might not understand, but as time goes, it'll make sense. So yeah, it's like when she talked about, I think what really threw me off about Stacy, and I'm gonna be completely honest, when she's talking about bringing LGBT issues into schools and classrooms and all of that, like leave the kids out of sexuality, because right now children, we were not introduced to sexuality until we were at least in middle school when we start getting sex education. But it's already bad that so much of TV and entertainment is now putting sexuality in front of our kids early. But I don't support a lot of the shit that Stacey talking about. I don't.
Now, see, you didn't hit all kinds of nerves here. Let me,
Oh well.
because okay, now the reason why I say that is okay. Now, there is not one news station that you can go on. No, let me make sure. Yeah, no, because I'm going to include Fox in this too. That does not have at least one member of the LGBTQ community as part of its staff, reporting, writing, or Rachel
They are
Meadows.
bullies. They bully their way into
Wait a
it.
minute. No, hold on. Let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then I'm watching Grey's Anatomy, and there's another LGBTQ relationship that's on in prime time. I turn to another station, supposedly a medical show. I'm not sure whether it's the New Amsterdam one. And here's two men in a relationship. So, in every aspect of entertainment, it seems that this is now acceptable. I think I'm not a big conspiracy kind of guy, but I think that there's a certain quota that the entertainment industry feels that it has to force upon us in order for us to accept this. When a young kid goes to school, and I'm going to say somewhere between the ages of 6 and 8, maybe not kindergarten, but somewhere between 6 and 8, you notice when the kid that sits next to you, he has two men drop him off at school, or two women. I think that this is something that it should be in schools to a certain extent, because the kids are forced to deal with it every day. So if a kid has to look at it and watch it every day, shouldn't someone explain to him what is happening?
I don't understand where a kid would have to look at it or watch it just because it's on adult shows. Now there are shows. It was a little show that my children used to watch. Um Dang, I can't even think of what the name is, but it was on Disney. It was like a 12 to 13-year-old type of show. But they definitely had bisexual, bi-curious type of interest within it. But that is for a parent to sit down and speak to their children about. Unless it's like middle school, high school, that's one thing. But when you're talking about elementary age kids, I'm not with it. It's just some things, and I used to hate when my children used to watch the show, and I actually made them stop watching it because nobody outside of your parents should introduce you to those type of things and be able to have that conversation. Because I just don't think this is safe. I don't think it's safe for children to be introduced to that through schools and other means.
Okay, okay, yeah, I
Because you're
appreciate.
introducing for the children that are not watching those things, for the children who are semi sheltered, you're introducing them to something that they may have never even thought of, and that's the problem. It's almost
Okay,
like the what people call the "Don't Say Gay" bill in Florida. It has nothing to do with not saying gay. It has something to do with not putting that type of information in front of third graders, fourth graders, and fifth graders, because at that age level, you're not thinking about sex or sexuality unless somebody in your household is introducing you to that and allowing that to be in your mind frame. That age, you're not thinking about that.
no, you're not thinking about it, like you would when you're a teenager, when you're talking about sexuality and things like that. But as like I said, these kids, are exposed to it almost
In every
from,
way, shape, form, or fashion.
yeah, so it's not. And the thing about it is, now one of the things that kind of I wonder about, and maybe it's just me, but when I see, people talking about adoptions, and you have a LGBTQ couple trying to raise a child, do you think that that has any effect on the future thoughts of the child?
I think that children oftentimes try to be like their parents unless their parents teaches them or shows them things outside of what they see. Then it has an effect. But if that's all that child knows, then they won't know. They don't have any comprehension of the effect that it's going to have because that is all that they know and they're seeing. But we
So,
don't teach straight classes. Like there's no class about being straight.
well, there used to be. There used, but only because it was in our generation, it wasn't as acceptable as it is now. Those
Right.
were things those were things that your grandparents or like you say now, you talked. Your parents talked about it. Your grandparents, you weren't exposed to that type of thing unless it was part of your household.
I
But
mean, but nowadays it's in songs, it's in everything.
right,
I
right.
mean,
That
and it is, but hearing it in a song,
Dr.
it's almost like
Casey, you see little 3-year-old kids out there trying to twerk now.
no, when I was a kid, I twerked. That was encouraged. In some cultures, like if you go to Louisiana, it's not abnormal for that
but
to
it,
take
wa-
place. If you go to Africa,
but
it's not abnormal either.
right, it doesn't have the same connotation as the word twerk. Those are in Africa or in the settings that you're talking about. Those are cultural settings where it's part of your culture.
So
Not not
it's
not not not
uh,
not not where boy, I'm getting ready to sound like Mr. Scott here. Not where rap has condoned it, or made it
but
cute.
it's still cultural though. It is cultural for Black communities to learn how to shake their ass.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, you can, but like I said, it has been a stigma has been put on it because of the same stigma that's been put on our music.
But Trina used to everybody be talking about, oh, the music that they playing now is just so degrading.
I
Trina Trina used to talk about all type of shit that I shouldn't have been singing when y'all was singing it. Lil Kim, Uncle Luke,
Come
it
on.
was either even some of the
Boy,
older
everybody,
guys.
everybody used to wait for Lil Kim to put out a video. Boy, that was the
Even even when you
shit.
think about if you think about H Town, if you think about uh Casey and JoJo, all of these artists had very vulgar. Now it was a little bit more situational.
Acceptable.
It was a little bit more diluted, like where they use metaphors and stuff, but they were still talking about things that if you listen to some of the music now, you be like, oh my God, I was singing that when I was a kid. What the world? Like, so a lot of times people act like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they doing this." And it was worse or bad
Oh,
or worse when we, like when we were younger. It super
let's
freak. It's I can think
hey,
of it's a song woman to woman. It was the lady that
yeah,
sang that song, she used to have all type of
yeah,
crazy songs.
yeah, yes. I know exactly who you. I can't. Oh man, but because you talk about some of those songs, like the boys in the penitentiary used to sit down and write letters home, and baby,
Right.
Anyway,
Like so for now, for people to act like, "Oh my god, I cannot believe that they're doing songs," like, come on, let's be serious. This is not new. It's
no,
just you older and now you like when we were younger, we didn't know what we were singing. We were just but and as you get older, you be listening to the lyrics like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe."
yeah,
But
hey,
literally it's been going on.
yeah, like I said, some of the things, I could talk about your grandma's dress back in my days, and like, hey, that was, we thought that's what women wanted, baby. Look at I love how them jeans fit on you, and so forth. Hey, can you do them same things that you do, so forth and so on. But anyway,
Right.
so and I recognize that, but maybe I lived on the wrong, because I'm from that side of the tracks, and I'm not one of those guys that uh, you know because like I try to tell Mr. Scott, hey, Otis Redding, Little Richard,
Mhm.
come
Mhm.
on now, please. I mean, Little Richard was the first prince, so but yet and still, we consider them classics, and but like you said, but one thing I do think that is more prevalent in this generation is them using their songs to tell on themselves.
Oh my gosh.
I,
I mean, they will tell the time, the date, the name of the person who was shot and killed, the dope that they, how many, like, and look, again, we have seen time and time again over the years where, um, older guys used to talk about moving weight, but it was so discreet in how they would talk about things to where now the DA ain't got to look for no evidence. Somebody said, well, there ain't no evidence. If you're snitching on yourself, you don't really need that much evidence. All you gotta do is put two and two together.
there's a series now. I think I'm not sure whether it's on Stars or HBO. It's only a half hour. It's
Mhm.
on Sundays on BLM,
Mhm.
and they're interviewing some of the old guys. Some of the guys are around your age now or older. Some of them are still in the pen. And one of the things that all prevalent throughout the whole thing is I'm not dry snitching. I'll tell y'all like it is, but I'm not dry snitching on who did what and who did. Whereas, like you say, now, and I got nephews in the business, so I know it's like, it's ridiculous. Nigga, all they got to do is play back your song.
Mhm.
I mean, but anyway, uh,
Cause they be giving details that don't nobody know but the person that did
right,
it.
right, right. So I
Like,
mean,
look at
hey,
the detail and see, and the funny well, not funny. The crazy thing is when you look at like, cause right now, Young Thug and Gunna has been in jail for a couple of months now, and they keep trying to go and get bond. And then here comes a guy. They have a guy. I just saw a post where a guy was testifying about how he was put up to go and do dirt by them. I mean, and they like, well, we don't know why they not getting no bond. They keep denying the bond. If they're denying the bond, they might not tell you every single detail what is in the package in public. But if them attorneys go through that discovery packet, they know what the hell going on. They know
of
why that
course,
bond is being denied because they got somebody snitching and telling on them, and they had already said that they was trying to keep the witnesses that was snitching names on the low until the last minute because they're getting threats. So if they've already said all that, they're not gonna let y'all out. You know
no,
why?
no.
Because y'all should, as soon as you go big, if you're going to, this is, listen, I don't know how many entertainers you are have watching this or we have watching, but if you decide at any time to be famous, please stop doing crime because you cannot be a criminal and be famous and not have those two lives coincide with each other. Because guess what? At some point, you're going to have to choose either the streets or fame. But if you try to do both, they're going to catch you up,
Oh, no, no doubt. But
especially if you're talking about what you're doing in your songs that you're still doing. Man, it ain't
that
no,
you said, yeah,
right. It ain't no statute of limitation. Y'all talking about shit that just happened 2 weeks ago.
yeah.
Yeah, I ain't talking about stuff that happened. Oh, it been 5, 6, 7 years statute of limitation. No, you're talking about stuff that just happened.
And some things don't have a statute of limitations. Remember that. Uh, um, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Supreme Court and this affirmative action in education. What do you think is going to happen with this? Do you think they're going to do it like Roe versus Wade and overturn this after 40 years also?
Man, when you talking about the Supreme Court, it's really no, you can't really say what they're gonna do. It's a possibility that they could overturn it. It kind of depends on the law in which I mean, the premise of the law that it was founded on. Whether there are grounds to overturn it. But at the end of the day, um, it's up to the states to really figure out what they're going to do. Only thing that the Supreme Court and the federal government is doing is saying, okay, we're going to give y'all a little bit more leeway to do more of what y'all want to do as a state.
But you're talking about Pell grants and things like this. Those are government grants, not state grants.
I mean, well, I can't use Pell Grant no more. No way.
But you got kids that can use it, right? Oh no,
I mean,
no, yeah. Well, it depends upon how much money the parent makes, right?
it does depend on how much money the parent makes. However, because I am 100%, my children have Chapter 35 benefits, so
Okay,
I am not
okay,
codependent on any other system because I know that that will take care of their college education.
okay, okay. But everybody's not as fortunate as you
Thank the Lord for God blessing
now.
me with for God blessing me with some disabilities so that my children go to school. It's a fortune and misfortune at the same damn time.
Yes. Hey, that's so much for military service, right?
Right. I mean, I think that when you talk about education, this is the thing. There's a lot of education that I believe should be free. Um, will they make it free? Probably not, because why would you make something free that you making billions of dollars on? Um, but I think that if you're going to school for psychology, and more community based jobs, you should be able to get a free education because that's what's needed. But at the same time, you got to understand that if you make school more affordable, then although you're gaining all that financial increase from the debt that students have, you're also making the job market a little bit more cluttered. Because right now, most people that go to school and get college education can't find no job in whatever they get an education for. But to go with that, a lot of people are not going to school for things that they actually have interest in. They're going to school based on what somebody told them they should go to school for. So about time that they actually finish school, they're not even interested in whatever they went to school for.
Yeah, and we need to get rid of some of those frivolous education titles anyway. I think to us, I mean, I do, I think there should be more of a distinction made between academics and arts. Uh, because a lot of times you cannot you can't cross the two unless you're very versatile or you know exactly your agenda here. Um, but go to a question because you were talking about the lesser of two evils,
Mhm.
and you didn't want to be one of those persons. Um, so we have a presidential election coming up in 2024.
Mhm.
And we've all talked about Biden and what we think about Biden. And, even I don't think that he should be elected again
He's not fit for
because,
office right now.
well, no, I don't think that, I can't say I don't think that he's fit for office, but I think that if he does get office, he does need to have the right people around him and he has to have the right vice president, which I'm not sure that Camilla Harris was, and that's a whole nother discussion. But for the way things are going right now, what do you think would be or I'll put it like this: if the 2024 presidential election comes down to a second term for Biden or a
Trump,
second term for
Trump,
45, who gets
Trump.
elected? Uh,
And I say Trump over Biden because at least with Trump, you knew what the hell was going on. He gonna talk himself into whatever the hell he's talked so much about what is on his mind. You never had to wonder what was going on. But guess what Trump ain't doing? He ain't sending 20, 30 billion dollars to no damn Ukraine. I bet
but
you Trump wouldn't do that.
neither is Biden.
How many checks Biden has sent to Ukraine?
Wait,
He
wait,
done
wait,
had
wait.
at least 4 or 5 bouts of sending money to Ukraine in the billions. First 2 billion, then 4 billion, then 6 billion. And now he's just now getting frustrated because they want more. But guess what? If a person keeps sending you billions of dollars, you're gonna keep asking for billions.
Okay. So you would do you think that Biden sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, what about the billions of dollars that Trump is going to put into police? What about the billions of dollars that Trump is going to use in his war chest uh, as far as backing other political contenders and political candidates that foster white supremacy? I
Well,
mean,
he that's there
is
regardless.
is it
So Joe
always
Biden, Joe Biden has always been a white supremacist up under it all. I don't care how much he try to spin it like he for black people right now. His original thoughts and policies were always against black people. So you can pull the wool over somebody else's eyes and banana tail up the banana in the tailpipe somebody else. But Joe, just because Joe don't wear it on the surface, does not mean that Joe is not on some bullshit. People like that, they don't change when they get 70 years old. They just don't show it as much.
hmm, you know you just stepped on all my toes here, right? No, no, because I like to think that I'm more progressive than that at this age. In fact, I think I'm more progressive now than I was when I was closer to your age because then I was kind of prosperous and I didn't give a damn about other people. Like, and that's just being truthful. I was doing my thing, and I was taken care of, and it was good. But it's not that okay. I guess I might as well get downright and dirty
Trump
here.
is gonna give people stimulus money. He gonna do everything that he can to damn fluff the people pockets in America versus Joe. Like, what has did Joe send some money to Jackson? He did anything for Jackson when they just went through this water crisis?
Well, all of the see, like I said, we keep blaming or looking at a lot of things that are now, but we don't go back to their roots of 20 or 30 years ago. Flint water didn't just all of a sudden get brown 5 years ago. Flint water
No,
didn't just get
every
brown 10 years
single
ago.
system, every single water system is old.
Is
Is I don't know what they're
is
hundreds and thousands
over
of years
50 or
old,
100 years old. So
and
we
they
can't
all are damaged.
right. So we
But
can't
what I'm
keep
saying is, right now, they just since Joe been in office, have said that they can't drink the water in Jackson. What has Joe done to help them? How long did it take? He's sending money to Ukraine like it ain't no damn tomorrow. But when it comes to what we need here in America, he's slow to move his fucking
he
feet.
sent he's sending money to North Carolina. He's sending money to North Florida. He's sending money to Louisiana because these people had the biggest voices. Mississippi, if you remember, is the poorest state in the union. They're
Look,
on the bottom of the total. They're even further down
it's a no for Joe.
you know. So I mean, and the governor and the senator and the House are all Republicans.
It's a
You
no
know,
for Joe.
So, but
No
okay,
Joe.
okay. So, who would you accept from the Democratic Party?
It don't matter as long as it ain't Joe.
would you would you really accept Camilla?
Man, she don't even do that
You,
right now.
well, that's
She's like a pawn. She's like a damn puppet. She say just
she
as
ain't even
only a damn
a
hour to
puppet.
say.
She ain't even a puppet. I mean, you knew
We
that
barely
how
even
they
see
do
her.
the
I forgot she was the vice president.
ad.
Who, 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 who?
you
Where
know,
Camilla at?
hey, she was much more vocal when she was out here in L.A. putting black people in jail. But that's another,
Right.
you know.
But you know what they do? They put her on that bill so that they could get the vote. They didn't put her on that bill just so that they could so she could be actually doing something. Cause I don't know what she do, but don't look like she do nothing.
Come on, they put Carmelo on there to get your vote or what they thought would be
I
your vote.
yeah, I listen. You know what? Why I don't feel no way about Joe for real? Because I didn't vote for Joe. If I would have voted for Joe, I'd be pissed the hell off. I'd be writing the letters to the White House. Joe, what is you doing? But I didn't vote for him, so I don't feel no type of way. I didn't vote for Trump either. Now, let's be clear. I did not vote for Trump.
No, there were other candidates, but now okay, now would
I would
you?
rather not vote for somebody, not vote for anybody, than to just vote for somebody just to say I voted. And the bad part is a lot of times right now we're in a state where people will vote for somebody just because they're black. Even Herschel Walker at that point, some people will vote for him just because he's black. And that is not acceptable. I'm never voting for somebody just because they black ever again in my life. Ever again in my life. Because just because you black don't mean you have black interests at heart.
Ah, all skin folk ain't kin folk. Hmm.
A
Yeah, I've been saying that for years. Uh, Talking about Kanye, did you think that he apologized, or do you think that he doubled down on his comments? And uh, when I was I was listening to it, and it just seems like he replaced the pronoun with
did you
red
see
with red media.
Did you see the recent interview where he apologized to the black community and
Yeah,
compared
that's
the
the
one
one
where he can
that's the video that I sent where it says "Preach Kanye"
oh yeah, when he compared him being losing his billionaire status to
to Emmett
George
Till
Floyd,
and George
like
Floyd.
but
He went down to he when he got down to Emmett Till, I was done. You know,
Kanye is a sad case right now. And he has some valid points, some valid truth in some of the things that he is saying. But when you put enough bullshit with sugar, it's bullshit because you lose your merit when you start trying to compare shit and you know Kanye is all about Kanye. Um, I always said that once you seen how that relationship with him and the Kardashians develop, we will see what that Kardashian curse would do to him. And we are watching the unraveling of Kanye West. He is totally opposite of everything that we loved Kanye for, everything that he stood for, everything black power, black excellence. He's not with none of that. He's lost. I think that he does have some extreme bipolar issues. I don't know what his mental health status is, but he definitely seems like he needs to take some medicine and talk to somebody about what he has going on. Um I Jack Stephen Jackson is speaking for the family and I support George Floyd family and Stephen Jackson all day long because Kanye is tripping. Kanye, he's so far left field. It ain't no way to get him back right. I don't think.
you know. I, I was thinking about you and the Kardashian curse, and the first thing that came into my mind was Lamar Odom, the Skittles guy.
Hmm.
Now Kanye, and then Tristan Thompson, the kid that
Chris Humphreys, every person. that dates, I want to say anybody in their family, because Scott is off too. I have not seen one person date somebody in their family and not be a little bit thrown off. Ray J probably kind of survived, but Ray J is out there kind of too. But is his own, he got his own little thing going on. But yeah, I haven't seen one person, one guy survive dating one of them and not come out the little throat.
Um, so let's getting back to these midterms. Do you think that the polls are going to be correct in that the Republicans are going to take over the House and possibly the Senate?
Man, I don't know what to think. Only thing that I can do is just hope that it doesn't affect my VA benefits in a negative way, and that things get better. Because right now we've been in a shit show for several centuries. And as long as we have the people in office, little to nothing will change, because you're talking about a whole bunch of people that's been in these seats for 20, 30, 40, some 50 years. And all this time they've been okay with the way things have been, and they're not willing to change.
Um, Knowing how much you study religion and different cultures and whatnot, you weren't here last week, and I played a little segment from Gene Simmons. Do you know who Gene Simmons is? I assume.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Okay. And one of the things that Gene said was that when he was talking about Kanye, is that even though we, meaning blacks, have endured persecution for decades and hundreds of years, it's the Jewish people that the persecution goes back centuries, hundreds of thousands of years, and you can read it in the Bible that they gave us. What did you
Well,
think about
clearly,
those?
if they gave it to us,
Meaning
the
the
person
Jewish
that
people.
writes the history is always going to paint themselves in the way that they want to be seen. And they're going to paint everybody else, as it comes, because they are the ones writing the history books. So I heard what he said, and this is where some of the things that Kanye is saying is not totally wrong. When you talked about the history of the people and who the original Jews are and all of that, some of it he's not totally off. Um, but you know, we're dealing with a conditioning, mental conditioning, where we've been told that we have to think like this, or we have to believe this, and that anything opposite of this is wrong. So, as long as those people continue to control the things that they control, we have to kind of play into their hand, at least play into their hand until we can put ourselves in a better position to make the truth more relevant.
But the Bible that's accepted by the Western world, on the front of mine, it says King James Version. I mean, hey, I know what it says on the front of my Bible. It's damn my damn name, damn near. So I mean, how can you possibly, unless your Bible or your religion goes by the Torah, how can you possibly contribute? I mean, we have a history. Like, does anybody remember Ethiopia and the books that came out from there, the Black Madonna? I mean, are these just
They
things that
don't want to. That's the thing. They don't want to acknowledge the real history. That's why I said We have to, like with Kanye, this is what I'll say about Kanye. It's nothing wrong with speaking your voice or speaking your mind, but it's knowing when, where, and how, because you cannot expect to be on somebody's payroll and then speak against the people that's paying you. Like you got to put yourself in a position to where no matter what I say, they can't, you know what I'm saying, affect my income. My pockets is gonna be my pockets regardless. But if
Well,
you're doing
that's what he thought. I mean, that's what he said. Hey,
it, no matter
they,
what I
they,
say, they can't let
yeah,
me go.
they can't fire me. Okay,
See,
you
but
know,
sometimes people got to learn the hard way. That's the thing. Again, this is probably the only place where I really speak a lot of my views that I do not necessarily share out loud. And not I'm not nobody is paying me or nobody can necessarily stop my funds that I have. Everything that I have is pretty secure. However, I just know that there are people that don't like the truth because the truth does not put them in the best light. And this is the reason why critical race thinking or theory is such a taboo topic for some, because if we tell the truth, it's not going to be pretty for people that have been living a lie.
yeah. I think that's well, it's one of the reasons why I haven't really went for a sponsor for this particular program because I think everybody should be able to express their views, and plus, you know, just radical ass me. But anyway, um, so do you? And I guess this is just another part of pessimistic me. Do you really feel that black people have made progress in the last 70 years?
Financially, somewhat, but we have seen
The
where black
chosen few, I think. I think it's only the chosen few that get that opportunity to get to the next level.
it no,
No.
it's who chooses. It's who chooses to. There are people that are okay with being in poverty. There are people that are okay with the bare minimum government assistance. There are people that are okay with, just going along to get along. But for the people that are not, and I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but here in Atlanta, there's always been an overwhelming number of black people that are eager for success and that will go and chase their dreams. And it's not just in Atlanta. I'm here in Atlanta, so I'm able to speak to what actually goes on in Atlanta. So it's not just the chosen few, it's the people who choose to be more than anything that they've ever seen. And it's not a lot of people that choose to be more than what they've ever seen. It's a lot of people that say, well, I'm going to just go and get this job, knowing that this job is not going to put them in a place to where they can really change the lives of their family or future generations. So it's kind of hit or miss. Black people have always found their way to success. Is not just Tulsa, not just Harlem area, but I have a book called Black Fortunes, I believe it's called, and it is about several different places where black people thrived, and at some point they thrived so well that they were destroyed. And that's what normally happens. So black people are in a better place than what we've seen in our generation for a long time. But overall, we're at a standstill. The biggest standstill is the lack of unity that we have. So as long as we are not able to come together, get on one accord, like we should be able to move like the way the Jewish community moved against Kanye. And it wasn't just because of what he said about the Jewish community. I think it was a grand total of everything that he's saying is reckless for those companies. So anything that he's saying, as long as he's affiliated with them, would be bad for them all. but those things might have been tipping the scale. Um, but we should be able to move like that, where if you're doing something that's against us, we should be able to stop the cash flow to whatever you got going on. But we are not banded together enough, not on the same wavelength enough to really be able to uh, really capitalize on the power that we do have. We have a lot of power. We control everything. Everything that happens is mimicked off of something that black people have done. But black people, they don't see it that way. So as long as you don't see yourself for who you are, you won't know how to move.
Good evening, Brother Williams.
Hey, y'all, of all the people, y'all.
Uh, I was just discussing uh, the progress of black people over the last 70 years, and I'd asked Dr. Casey how this conversation started. Is how much progress did she think that we have made as a people in the last 70 years? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I do like what she said in terms of, and I mean, I completely agree with what she said in terms of the biggest thing that we're lacking at this point. I think has more so to do with unity. I think a lot of that has to do with what I referred to in the past as just dealing with assimilation, because we were forced to have to work together and we had no other choices and nowhere else to go. Then it forced us in a position of where we did for self and we dealt with at least being self-determined in terms of our communities and our well-being. But as soon as segregation opened up and we was allowed to assimilate, which I think was weaponized against us, mind you. I do want to make that clear that it was weaponized against us. And from that standpoint, I think that helped to create what I even see today is the rise of the culture of individuality. And through individuality is all about the pursuit of what you can do. And from that standpoint, the more you're able to separate yourself from a group, especially from a group of quote unquote minorities or second class citizens, then the better chances you have as an individual of succeeding in getting past that at least partially getting past some of the things that collectively happen to us as a group. And so I think a lot of people's escape, and I think I've said this last week, dealing with what I call the runaway slave mentality. The escape is more so the answer than the solution of us collectively coming together as a people. And I think, just like I say, we'll weaponize in order to not be able to think unified. You can simply go back to COINTELPRO in terms of the aims and objectives, and they talked about making sure you do not allow the community to come together. You do not allow an individual to be eccentric and to unify the youth. And by not unifying the youth, the focus was on recognizing that if you are able to create a generation of people that don't know how to congregate and work together and come together, then that generation of people is going to what raise another generation, and it's just going to start the cycle of making sure you have it embedded within our mentality to not be able to unify. So and it even ties directly into the whole concept of Willie Lynch. Once you teach people how to work against themselves, then it becomes a perpetual mentality. And until we able to correct that wrongdoing by recognizing, like I say a lot as well, being at war, recognizing that this is something that has been weaponized against us, then we don't see the need to unify. But just simply telling us that we need to come together because, you know, we all we got, without us all being in a situation where we're faced, something hitting us right at home in our face, to where we are forced to come together. A lot of us ain't gonna do it. And it even goes back to, I was at a movie screening um, this past weekend dealing with the George Floyd, and what one of the things that came up and what I have noticed is most of the people that attended the event were people that had personally had either directly had someone in their family that was victims of police brutality, or someone close to them was a victim of police brutality. But when I asked how many people in here are here just out of the sheer recognition that we need to come together and have a preemptive ability to be proactive, as opposed to waiting for something to happen to the family. You didn't get that many hands. Most people are led through their emotions to want to make change because it is something that is hit home. And again, to me, when you talk about weaponization and things being used against us, we've been taught to be divisive as a population, not just black people, but black people in particular. But we've been taught to work against each other, and that's one of the things that capitalism does anyway, and imperialism. So from that standpoint, we have to be untaught how to be divided as a people, and then reconnect ourselves with that element of power, which is why the Panthers say all power to the people, because we know that that's our power. We see that it's just plain as day that if the masses come together, and I don't mean it necessarily has to be everybody, but if you look at the percentage of people that are like ourselves here on this gathering, our numbers are small, very small. So we are not even able to make up enough a percentage in order to, effectively be able to combat the situation without getting the people involved. I would even use it as the same statistics and demographics that they use when they form police departments. For so many amount of citizens, they want to have a police officer, and that's how cities decide how many officers they want to have based upon the amount of people within that specific area. So there's a percentage. We have to learn to figure out what percentage of people of activists do we need to have in order to make swift and progressive and long-term change in terms of fighting oppression. And when we're able to put a number on that, and we're able to keep those numbers above the minimum, then I think we're on the right path.
Well, Brother Williams, then what happened to our power? Because when I was a young man, 18, and a teenager, there was a company called Woolworths. And black people banded together and we actually put Woolworths out of business.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we pointed out you talk about the organizations. We had hundreds of organizations, maybe too many organizations that were willing to come together. And I mean, we had enough organizations to whether you were a Bible toter or you were a segregationist or whatever, there was a place for almost everyone. Now it seems like not only have we lost the unity, but we have run out of places to go.
Well, let me say this about that. That kind of goes back to something that Kwame Ture stated. Um, it's a powerful speech that he gave on talking about organization and mobilization, and how the two have separated themselves, especially nowadays. The Those that are heavy into mobilization, and I would say organizations like Black Lives Matter, don't don't see and don't structure themselves through organization. A lot of the organizations are not able to mobilize. The two have to be together, have to work together. As a result of the two working together, and that is how we approach combating fascism, racism, and oppression. Then what you may have within your toolbox as you mobilize is one of the things that you don't hear much about now, and that's boycott. We've lost the art of boycotting through our mobilization. Mobilization now don't include boycotting. Mobilization now include getting out of the streets, protesting, trying to create levels of discomfort, bringing attention to a situation, and then maybe a little rioting, a little looting, and then you go back to sleep. Or you bring more attention to the situation. You stand out in the street longer. Whatever happened to boycotting? That was one of the powerfulest things that I felt was going on in the 60s, 50s, and 60s during during the times of protest, is the boycotting element. When we are able to recognize it, especially us as Black people, going back to what Dr. Casey said, have the power and the control of the wealth, because we are the largest consumers. When we take that power and we decide how we're going to utilize that power, we can shut down a lot of this stuff that is being used against us because they completely depend upon us to allow this system, this capitalist system, to stay afloat. So when we utilize that power of boycotting properly, we can make a hell of a difference than the way things are going now. And I even think, I don't know if y'all talk much on it yet, but I even think that's one of the things that Ye is alluding to.
I think we have too much of a short attention span to do anything effective.
Yeah, that's the way social media has been weaponized against us. Again, I even talk about that as far as your smartphone, because you can ask Siri and Alexa a quick question, and this whole generation of youth have been so used to being able to instantaneously get answers. Then what happens is we have substituted answers for solutions, and
Mhm.
because you can get an answer so quick, it affects your attention span. That's also why the youth have less of a tolerance of being able to deal with stress, and you have more explosive behaviors now throughout the youth, because a lot of this is tied into the fact that technology is moving at a certain pace that is outpacing the users of the technology in terms of their emotional stability to engage with the technology that they're using. And I think that's part of the dynamic that we're also dealing with.
It's so crazy that you say that because I've literally heard commercials for lawsuits against social media apps for mental health issues basically. And it that is has been baffling to me because I don't I've never considered social media to have that big of a hold on us. But I do know that the younger generations are more addicted to social media than some of us in our 30s and 40s and older.
Right. And I think in our 30s and 40s, and like you say, older than that, we're already past the certain developmental stages within our brain and how we see things, to where we're not going to be affected the way a child is affected. Because again, remember, they're still developing their emotional state, but yet they're stuck in front of these devices all day long, when they need to emotionally be connecting themselves in an environment to where they're literally going outside and playing and socializing with one another. And then you got to think one of the things that we didn't have during our time is we didn't have a COVID. We didn't have a situation to where you were trapped inside the house for 2 years. And so that generation that was directly affected by that became more centralized and more codependent upon that type of technology. And so that has a different hold on them than it does us. Even though you will see plenty of adults just walking down the street, zombied out on their phone and not paying attention to where they're going, they're not at a point to where if they lose a phone, they're gonna explode, want to tear up stuff and all that. Again, it goes into the emotional development of a child as opposed to an already developed an adult. And I think that's the dynamic that we have to see about that.
Uh, Brother Williams, did you think that Ye apologized, or did he double down on his comments concerning the Jewish control of the entertainment industry when I think he used the term red media.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think he doubled down. I mean, I don't think he apologized at all. I think what he did, and honestly, I know y'all may not agree with me, and y'all may hate me for what I'm saying on this part, but I think what he did was brilliant, because I think he actually came to a point to where he's doing the same thing that a lot of progressive, should I say, the progressive hip hop artists have done, that have just decided not to go mainstream and take their contracts in their own hands, and stay independent, as a result of what Ye is pointing out, and that is that the music industry and the media industry is controlled by a small percentage of Jews. He's doing is telling the truth. And so when he narrowed it down to the business Jewish community, that was his way of apologizing to all of the Jews, so to speak. And I'm only talking about the ones that are the elitists that are running the entertainment industry. and what he's speaking on is nothing but truth, and he's just simply talking about how they are able to implement racism, and that's in essence what he's talking about. And to me, that kind of goes into the difference between when they tried to call him a racist because, again, like he would say, of a tweet, him expressing himself, versus racism is prejudice plus power. And racism is when you have the ability to tell me that if I speak on something that you don't agree with, that you will remove my contract, you will shut me down, you will lock me out the industry. But yet, just like Ye spoke on, this same industry pushes and promotes black on black violence, pushes and promotes us talking negative and crazy about each other. And that is the music that they want to push and sell upon society. But yet, if you speak the truth and you speak truth to power, then all of a sudden you're being anti Semitic. So it's okay to talk about killing each other. It's okay to talk about defaming women. It's okay to talk about crime. It's okay to talk about bling. It's okay to be narrow minded and stupid in everything you put out. And that gets promoted. But as soon as you speak truth to power, all of a sudden, now you are a threat and you're anti Semitic. And that's all Ye is pointing out on that part.
Good night. Well, wait a minute now, Brother Williams, because I remember when Ice Cube came out with, uh, I believe it was a painting, and it showed a bunch of old Jewish looking men sitting around a Monopoly board, and the
Hmm.
board was set on a table on the backs of black men. Why is the fallout so different between what Ice Cube is saying and what Kanye has done?
Well, Ice Cube had, if I'm not mistaken, that was an album cover where he had that,
Right.
and that's also around the same time that he put out that he had the cop killer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, he got condemned to a certain degree, but again, look at how Ice T did
Ice
his
Cube.
thing. I thought that was Ice T that did that.
Uh, might have been Ice. I know it was one. I think it was Ice Cube, but
Okay,
it, it might have been T. But I think it
in
was
either
Cube.
in either case, um, what we have to recognize that the differences between that is just so much was said and then they stopped. Jay-Z has always, not to say, not, let me reframe that. He hasn't always, but he has already been known for his outburst, for his emotional outbursts and cry.
instability.
Yeah, and so it is a lot easier to try to couple that to who he is as opposed to how, whether we want to say Ice Cube or Ice T in terms of how Dave's spoken. Ice Cube, if we want to talk a little bit about him, he started out with a group, uh, nigga, niggas with
NWA. Niggas with
niggas with
attitude.
attitude. So so when he was a part of that, that is what helped really project gangster rap in that negative aspect of rap. And him and people like him and MC Ren immediately changed their tone. They eventually, when they went their own way, they changed their tune, got involved in the Nation of Islam, and now Ice Cube was putting Khalid Abdul Muhammad on his albums. And MC Ren went as far as creating a song uh, talking about the attack of Babylon. And I think he ended up, that's why his career didn't continue to take off, is because he was basically talking about destroying the white government. But then Ice Cube took a whole different direction, where his music was on one level and he was able to get off into movie production. And when he made Friday, that just blew him up on a whole different level. And he recognized that he could be a business person on this side. And so many people didn't even know that Ice Cube was a rapper when he when he got involved in the movie industry. I remember having to show that to a lot of people when he made that one movie, Are We There Yet? And white folks started falling in love with him as it applies to being this comical guy. Again, when you are able to cross over to a point to where you're making comedy and you're making people laugh at you, that's a whole different era. So then he was able to separate part of his quote unquote heritage in terms of what he did with the music industry to what he did with the film industry. And so that was him being very smart and wise in regards to his in regards to the tactical moves he made. Ice T basically ended up doing the same thing, going from being a pimp to now all of a sudden playing on movie roles of him being a cop. So when you got somebody that is putting themselves in that light, and again, that's an enforcer. No matter how you want to dress it up, he changed his role, and that role changed the perception and image you got of him. Then he was being calculated in regards to that. But now, then you got to take people like Professor Griff being a part of Public Enemy, and once he was educating them and letting it be known in terms of this is where we get our source material, and our source material had to do with one of the books he put out that they were studying called The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. That's what got him kicked out of Public Enemy. So it's a different channel that Ye is coming from now. And all of a sudden now he's speaking up to the level that they did. And
See,
so
but
go ahead, Dr.
Mr.
Asia.
Williams, what I said earlier is that two things. Everything that he's saying is not necessarily wrong or false. It's a lot of truth
Right,
to it. But when you stir shit with sugar, it's
right,
gonna be
right.
shit. You know,
Correct.
like so it would be better if he had somebody to help him tailor his message to what he really wants to say versus being all over the place. And then also, you cannot put yourself in a position to where you're basically challenging the people that's paying you because if they feed you, they can starve you. So he's put himself in a
Mhm.
position where he can be starved out in a way that he has not produced enough of independency to really be able to share the message that he's intending to share. But the fact that he is being so messy about it, when you're mentioning George
Yeah,
Floyd and
yeah.
then you're going
Right,
after
right.
his baby mama and child and all of that, you talking about how you didn't. So did you give him 2 million or give the fund 2 million so that you could
Right.
say whatever you want to in the end? Because if you did it for that reason, then from what I hear, they're giving it back, and it was only about
Right.
250,000 that she actually got. But I would have gave it back too because giving me money, and this is the thing, this is this is the real thing that we're facing because the same thing that he is saying that the Jewish community is doing to him is the same exact shit that he's trying to do to George Floyd's family and saying, "Well, I gave you money, so you can't you should be
Hmm.
able to let me do and say whatever I want to." At just you giving me money does not mean that you can say whatever you want. This is the reason why personally I don't let men take care of my bills. I don't let them do a whole lot of shit for me because when a nigga start giving you money, they feel like they got
Uh-oh.
something
Here
to
we
show
go.
for
Here we
it.
go. The angry black woman to come to.
You know, listen,
No, I got
We said
seven sisters.
we
I
said some
understand what
trigger
you're
words.
saying.
if it hadn't been proven, I would be just like any other female because there's a lot of women. I mean, I got guys offering to do stuff. I had somebody offer me the other day, well, if you need anything, and my question is, what do it look like I need? I don't need nothing. Not from nobody because not all men. It's just about 95% of men that give you things. They're giving
she
you things that
she
they can have some say so in your life.
she did
So
give
if
us three. She did give us 3%.
5%.
Probably
It's about 5%.
usually it's 98%. She only
Uh-uh,
went 95.
it's 95% because there are some men that just gonna give you whatever just because they
only
want to see you
only
with.
somebody lives in Atlanta would say that.
Nah,
Cause
I ain't from Atlanta though.
you surrounded by them.
I mean, but but that's a reality. But that's the same thing that Kanye West just did. Well, because I gave you some money, now I can abuse you or talk about
Yeah,
you or say
and
no.
and I can't dispute that. He has been very messy. I'm only hanging my hat on the fact that
He's
somebody
challenging the status
The
quo.
Jews. I like that. I love it. And I mean, I think he may be stepping a little outside of his shoe range. But to me, I love it because what people like again, like Professor Griff has always been saying and has been hitting on that folks think that, this is here go this black militant coming with this. Now you hear somebody who was mainstream. Now you hear somebody who never spoke on that level speak on it. But at the same time, I think because he's so scatterbrained and constantly, grabbing from everything, and I think that has to do with his creativity. But I think his creativity
His
gets in a
bipolar
way.
disorder.
Yeah, what I'm saying, it gets in a way when he decides on what he want to speak on. I just saying that same creativity that works for composing music will work against you when it comes to you speaking in a political arena. And so I think that's what happens. His mind is racing. It's just racing real fast, and as a result of that, he mixing a whole lot of things together and making some nasty gumbo. And
Yeah,
so
it's real
that
nasty.
yeah,
Real
and so
nasty.
that's what gets him in trouble. So yeah, I'm not gonna defend that. I'm not gonna defend the whole shirt thing with the White Lives Matter. That don't make sense to me. What he said with the George Floyd don't make sense with me.
Emmett
What he
Till.
talk about Emmett Till,
He,
that was
he,
stupid. And
he's
so
very impressionable. So whoever is around him the most is going to impress upon him whatever their thought process is. So right when he was with Candace Owens, guess what? He started
yeah,
talking all that type shit that she was
yeah,
talking. That's because she's in his ear. So
hmm,
it's your circle, whoever you put around you in your circle is very important because those are the ideals and the impressions that you are going to have in your mind and that's going to come out your mouth because the things that he's saying, some of it is not stuff that he just thought about, but some of it is just based on the fact that he was around Candace Owens because he wasn't talking about no damn George Floyd before he started being around that girl. But now he's gone so far, again, he's so far left field that I don't know if he's going to be able to ever be right. Like there are people making
yeah,
excuses for him. There are people trying to, and again, some of the stuff that he's saying is valid, it's accurate. We can see what they just
right,
did when they started canceling his deals. But
yeah,
I don't think that that's solely based on what he said about the Jewish community. You got to think. Everybody's like, well, they didn't do nothing until he said no. In the span of like 3 days, he said a whole bunch of stuff.
right,
So on the
right. And
first
he's
day,
still on it. He's still on it. But
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
I honestly think that he intentionally are trying to get out those contracts.
I don't think that. I
I
don't
think
give him
he
that
is.
much credit because
I think he
if
is.
if he did that for that reason, then he wouldn't have just made that second apology and he talking about how comparing George Floyd's death to him losing money. That shit ain't when his
No,
school
but
closed.
that's that gumbo though. That's that
That's
screwed
it.
screwed up
When
gumbo
his
mix.
Look,
school
hey,
closed,
hey,
I know
look
that
here.
he
I
wasn't
like
prepared
gumbo,
for it.
y'all. Y'all stop messing up my gumbo, man. Come on now.
Okay, okay, chitlin
Okay, okay,
stone soup.
okay. There you go. There you go.
Listen,
Slave
even if
food.
he even if he did have some type of plan with it, he didn't plan for it because if he did, he wouldn't have won. He wouldn't have put himself in a position to lose so much money. Then he wouldn't have put himself in position for his school to close or to have to
Mm,
come back and try to make these ugly unapologetic apologies and then dragging himself into like he's apologizing and then slapping more mud on himself. Like, I'm gonna
yeah,
say this, but I'm only doing it because I know that if I don't do it, y'all gonna keep taking my money. Y'all ain't gonna fuck with me like that. That's the only reason he's doing it. It's no remorse in anything that he's doing because his mental health conditions, his narcissism on top of the bipolar, if that's what he said, he bipolar, then you got narcissism. Then
right.
you
That's
have the
definitely
hurt of
narcissism.
divorce because divorce, I don't care how much you done with a person, I don't care how strong you are, divorce is very difficult to process and
Well,
then
look at
to
just
realign yourself.
not just divorce, but look at who he got divorced from. And I think
That's the
that plays
first.
into I think that plays a lot into why he's kind of messed up in the head, as well as keep in mind he even wrote a lyric about him and her being in a relationship before he married her. He said, "I'm in love with a porn star." He wrote a lyric, a powerful song regarding their relationship. And from that standpoint, he
He's
got
been
into a
writing lyrics
relationship
about
with
them
somebody.
for years since they've been in relationship.
Yeah,
It's a song where he say, I can't even think of the name of the song, but he talk about she'll get on your nerves if you let her. It's another I like it be little scattered things that he
Yeah,
try to put in there where if you paying attention, you will be like, oh shit. But if you not, then you would just think he just saying something just random. And
but
it's
see,
not
just
random.
it's just like you saying now though. You're talking about how see that's that creativity I'm talking about. How he that works wonders for him in the music for him creating music, but that's the same mind that is now speaking and voicing his opinion right off the bat. How he ain't it's a difference when you're able to put it down on paper instead of putting a camera in front of you and a mic in front of you, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
you're saying these same things, and instead of putting it in a lyrical format, you just speaking on a political front. It is he's basically committing suicide, financial suicide through his creativity in terms of how he's speaking. That's that mess, that we're
I think
talking
that we
about.
need to remove creativity because this is not solely creativity. Yeah, manic. Look, I literally talked to my therapist
so,
about this the other day.
so, so you gonna stay on the bipolar, right?
No, man, because genius is not genius is it can be sporadic. Genius can be it is definitely subjective, but what he has going on is far past being a genius or creativity. It's something that was managed when his mom was alive because his
Mm,
mom
that's
would
true.
kind
I
of
get
make
that.
his shit worse because
Right.
she didn't tell him about himself enough. She didn't correct him enough. From what we see, all she
Right.
did was encourage more of his bullshit and tell him he was right all the damn time. And that is
Mm.
never a good thing because at some point you got to stop blaming mental health. Some point you got to stop saying, "Oh, well, I'm just creative." No, address your shit because right now you are causing more problems instead of creating solutions.
Well, I think he would hit that point when it gets to a point, especially like when you get the same Jews that are coming out against him start teaming up with the blacks that are coming out against him, and you start having attorneys willing to take lawsuits and cases pro bono against his money, and next thing you know, he find himself being damn near like the average person, to where he ain't he done completely got his money pulled from him. I
I
think
think that that's
it'll
coming.
come down to that. Well, that's
Yeah.
when I think the whole mental health part will will come to play. I heard him
Yeah.
say on one of his video on one of the interviews he did that they tried to prescribe him pills and he refused to take those
That
pills, and he referenced being if they had he took the pills he'd be like
he'd be
Michael
like Michael
Jackson's in Prince.
Jackson. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he
That's the same
basically
video.
admitted, yeah, he basically admitted the fact that he may have a mental health issue, but
He
that
better
his
smoke
life
some
is
weed or
more
something to
important,
calm his
and he
goddamn
thinks
self.
somebody gonna kill him. He's basically stating
Yeah.
that they're trying to get him to take these pills
But guess
to
what?
kill him.
He will
That's
get
called
killed from the words that are coming out his mouth, even if he don't do that.
much
That's
quicker.
not gonna be the death to him because he has control over how he takes his medication. Prince didn't, they wasn't on no bipolar the way Kanye doing right now. Michael Jackson wasn't doing that. Those were
Right.
people, though. Michael Jackson, let's talk about Mike for a second. I was born on the same day Thriller came out, so that he is near and dear to my heart. But with Michael Jackson, you got a person that's dealing
Mhm.
with pain from surgeries, dealing with pain because once you start having surgeries, I don't care what you had surgery on, it come with some pain. Then you got a person that's dealing with all type of stresses from being in the industry, whatever he done to his skin. I'm sure that's painful. Um, eh, Treating it, dealing with it, and all of that. So it's easy. And then the generation that he came up in, it's easy to have PTSD and need some help sleeping. That
Oh
like
yeah.
that
He never had a chance to have a real childhood. So I
he
think
never had a chance to have a real
yeah,
anything
yeah. So
outside of music.
I can see that from him. And again, I think that's just Kanye associating himself with others, like he did with the Emmett Till thing, just like he did with George Floyd.
You need a
Uh,
scapegoat.
yeah,
Yeah.
making himself the scapegoat, and I think that's a toxic mixture of word uses that he's doing that is very suicidal. So I'm not. defending
And
him
then
in
of
any
course,
capacity other than I just like the fact that he is speaking on the the relationship that the industry has in terms of a lock on. That's the only thing I'm championing is that he is speaking on that. Even though him speaking on it is very suicidal. I'm just happy that he's doing it. If he gonna go down and kill himself, I like that that he doing it that way. That's all I'm saying. I like that
if
he
you
doing it that
are
way.
or anybody that you know are thinking about suicide, please call the suicide hotline. Do not go down the path of Kanye. Do not follow
I think.
Kanye. Kanye is off. We do not want
well,
you hurting yourself.
well,
Okay.
Did you
most people
just
ain't got millions of dollars to follow Kanye down that path. They don't they can't name a Jew that got control over their life.
oh man. Oh, uh, one subject I like to deal with before we leave here. We see Barack Obama out on the campaign trail now, and I'm not really sure. I know what Barack means to my generation, and those a little bit younger, but I'm not really sure uh, that he carries a polarizing message to the youngsters, to the younger black people like Dr. Casey. Um, who do you think has the most influence on his constituents at this particular time? Barack Obama or 45?
Mm. To me, that's kind of scary because I feel like 45 has more influence from that standpoint. 45 is got people making moves. The Republican Party is doing their thing in terms of of constantly trying to win seats and win people in positions of power to continue forth with that whole insurrection mentality. And I think Barack Obama, I really see him as just basically being a powerful alternative to Sleepy Joe. So when you in a position where you on the offensive versus the defensive, I see the Democratic Party being on the defensive and the Republican Party being on the offensive. To me, it's two totally different concepts from that standpoint. I don't see Barack running because for any other reason other than who does the Democratic Party got? Whereas you see Trump running from the standpoint of playing the right chess moves on a board and dealing with people, putting people, having people in positions of power to take back and however corrupt that is, but take back and move certain elements around so that he gains power. So he's playing a game of power, whereas to me the Democrats are playing a game of recovery.
Dr. Casey.
Hmm. You
we-
know, I already said no to Joe.
I know you said no to Joe.
Joe don't he ain't able to do anything now. I mean, look at one of the latest comments he did to where he called what he called his vice president a black Indian with Indian heritage. I mean, it was just crazy.
He is so unfit.
And then he almost and she had to save him again for almost walking off the stage. It is obvious. That's why I say the whole thing with Barack to me is a defensive move because he can't run. I mean, it's just to me it's just preposterous to think that he can live 4 more years. Let alone be president 4 more years. And that's what
Damn,
I
you
see
got
happening.
everybody down.
See, look,
He gonna
Now,
he
Joe,
gonna
I don't
he
want you
gonna
to
fall
go.
off the stage. He gonna fall off
Listen,
the stage and kill
see,
himself.
see, you know,
Joe, I don't want you to go like that, but I do want you to get out the White House because you're unfit. Just no to Joe.
yeah, I'm telling you, it makes me feel, I don't know. See, because I have at least, I consider 26 more years here, and I don't intend to spend one day of them like Joe. But, but, but on the other hand, eh, hey, I guess maybe, that's they're more susceptible to those type of dementias and things than black people because it does seems like that's something is more cognitive to their particular health issues. But I have to agree with you, brother Robert. I think that the Democratic Party is on the defensive, and personally, I don't see a viable candidate out there for the Democrats. Joe, if you go say that Joe's too old, there's no way in hell you can vote for Bernie. You know, and and unless you probably live out here in California, you have no idea about the background of Kamala Harris.
Right.
So I'm kind of at a loss of who's going to be this superstar that's going to step out from behind the curtain in 2 years, because time is getting short, and I just don't see a recovery for black people, especially through the Republican Party.
Yeah, and that even kind of goes into one of the things. I don't know if y'all discussed the whole thing with the affirmative action.
We
Um,
were getting into that, yeah,
yeah.
about whether
So
or not they were going to overturn that after 40 years,
yeah, and I
and the
see that happening.
repercussions that is going to happen within our community.
Yeah, and I see that being a very very strong possibility because I mean, just to me, based on the attacks that went down, with a critical race theory, the attacks we see in, to me, that even Kanye is adding to the mix of the pot. There, the more that certain people step up and try to make it appear as though the that we America's at a turning point, then it makes it that much more to those that empower. It makes it that much more of a situation where you can't continue to use your your certain levels of oppression as a crutch. And so, to their point of view, is that as long as you allow yourself to be used as a crutch because of what happened to your ancestors and those before you, and then they want to call themselves removing these things in order to try to make it seem as though, well, this is being done because you're equal now. This is being done because you have the ability now to rise up. And so, that to me, that has more so to do with that individual mentality, especially being able to go into the fact of saying, well, hell, Barack Obama was president. Y'all held the highest office in the United States. So being able to talk about an individual and use that individual as a token, then that causes them to be able to remove the collective aspect of our ability to continue to fight things and know that we need that kind of access. And so it also, to me, forces us back into a position to where we are going to have to again operate with collective power in order to regain our power, because they're going to be they're starting to strip it away. This goes back to why I say the republic is on the offensive. They are stripping away our rights, and now we're going to have to regain our rights by being in a position of recognizing that we have no other choice.
But can we gain that power through political action, Brother Williams? I
Not
thought.
it's not just political action. Again, to me, when we talk about it, we have to deal with things from a multi-level, multifaceted approach. That's why I also talked about the boycotts. To me, boycotting has to come back. When you have to hurt America where America thrives. If it thrives based upon capitalism, then you have to be able to attack it in its strongest point, especially when it depends so much on your unconscious spending habits. So that's the thing. If we have to become more collectively conscious about who we are and our position of power and where it lies, and in doing so, them depending on us being dumb, them depending on us being individuals, will come to an end. And when we recognize that power, that's what to get us in positions of power, of true power.
But Brother Williams, collective community also calls for unity.
Yep. That's why I said that been weaponized against us. We've been the whole point is to push the narrative of the individual. And again, you that going back to COINTELPRO, what has happened is several generations have went to sleep. Through them going to sleep, you have removed that collective unity that we once had. Not only did you remove it, but you made sure you assassinated certain people that knew how to promote that. When we talk about folks like Bunchy Carter and we talk about folks like Fred Hampton, they were killed in terms of being who they were within the Panther Party because they knew how to reach across ethnic lines, reach across uh, the financial lines. They knew how to reach across all of these different lines and bring people together the proper way. And in place, what did they do? They prompted and promoted and put in as an alternative people like Jesse Jackson, who turned around and used the Rainbow Coalition for a whole different uh, operation than what it was originally developed for. And so, from that standpoint, this is what I mean when I talk about how the CIA and the FBI are continually operating on domestic soil, running warfare and running military operations on the people. And this is what we're dealing with. So again, like I always say every week, once we realize we're at war, then we have more of a chance to equip ourselves properly to engage in this battle. But right now, we don't see it.
Brother Williams, we don't even have the right concept of war. We think that
Yeah.
war is bullets and shooting and
Right.
blowing stuff up. We don't have the concept. I mean, we don't deal about the psychological, the and all that. Those aren't things that our, our video games don't show us that.
Nope.
Dr. Casey, you got some final thoughts before you give your final thoughts. Brother
Yes.
Williams was talking about our affirmative action in the Supreme Court when you came back.
We got so much going on as a community, mainly because we are not proactive. We are so reactive. Oh my gosh. Everything we do is after somebody do something, then we react versus taking steps to see things long term and play long term uh mindsets and events, because as long as we react to what people do, we'll always be behind whatever is going on. We will never be in advance. So as a community, we really need to start looking ahead. It's a lot of intuitive black people out here. And don't none of these black people that's intuitive use their intuition to better the community. So a lot of I think what we need to do is, one, we have to find a way to unify in a conscious way, not just a little bit here or a little bit there, or we're going to take a day and do this, or we're going to take a day and do that. We have to really figure out what is going to be good for our community and then band together to figure out how to make it work. Now, strategically, we need to do it quietly.
There you
Uh,
go.
Strategically, quiet is always the best way to do something. Just like in war, you don't plan your whole war out loud.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the things that we're lacking. That's one of the things that Kanye fucked up with. Honestly, he would be better off if he was quiet about what he's trying to do, and not quiet in a fearful way, but in a way so that he can actually get some shit done and do it. And then, you know, if some of the things that he was doing was done on a different level of volume, then he would be able to expose and still eat. But as long as he's trying to be loud about everything he's doing, he's not going to be able to move as efficiently and effectively as I think that he could. And that's the biggest failure in whatever it is that he claimed he's trying to do. Because sometimes you got to do things like, again, this is the most I ever talk about politics or anything like that on this show. But aside from this show, unless I'm with somebody that's really gonna make something happen, I'm not sitting around talking about this because a lot of people want to talk, but then they ain't gonna do nothing. So I
Yeah.
don't like to waste my voice. But also, I have a lot of things that I think would be good, but it's not to be shared out loud every single where. Because that's how it gets diminished. That's how things, become less effective because now they're prepared for whatever it is that we're going to try to do. And the element of surprise is still real. And so even if we took planning serious as a black community, then that element of surprise because they know that we don't plan shit other than spending. So that would make us a lot more effective in the ability to come together greater. But the other thing is to stop seeing each other as an enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to quit presenting ourselves as enemy to each other, but we also have to stop looking for enemies within ourselves.
Right.
But a lot of that has to do with self healing.
Yeah.
That means that you have to start looking at yourself and examining yourself and working on yourself because the more you work on yourself, the better you are able to collaborate and communicate with other people. So the biggest thing is always going to be healing, self evaluation. We need to be accountable and responsible because in the black community, um, not just blacks amongst ourselves, but anybody can do something wrong to us, and all I got to do is apologize or some half ass like, oh, I didn't mean it, but and we just forgive so easy. And it's nothing wrong with forgiveness, but forgiveness is only effective if we're learning from whatever it is that has come against us. But right now, you could treat us any type of way, do whatever you want. You come with some half-ass apology, and we're gonna keep it on. Like, okay, they said they sorry. All right, let's go and be their friend again. At some point, we got to learn how to stand our ground mentally, spiritually, and every other way because I mean, they already got us down with the whole church thing. All they got to do is say some shit about Jesus and everybody going they lose their mind. So, we got to be stronger mentally and spiritually. We have to learn our roots more than we learn what was given to us. And until we do that, we will always be behind because we are okay with just doing enough to get along, to just make it. We are okay with surviving, and we have to get tired of surviving.
Yeah.
No, we definitely have to learn how to thrive. And one of my favorite parts of the Bible is vengeance is mine. But I put my name instead of the Lord. But that's it's a whole different mentality there. Brother Williams, take us home.
All right, I want to kind of just build off of what Dr. Casey said about stand your ground. Because when I think of stand your ground, I think of us going from a position of owning the victim mentality to owning the mentality of enough is enough, and now we've drawn a line in the sand. We've now defined a border that will not be allowed to be crossed, and in that point we transition from the position of being the prey to being the predator of the predator.
Mm,
It's like the king snake that attacks and eats poisonous snakes. And
right.
so we have to take the mentality now to where when we recognize our strengths, we move on that and we move the action on that. And so as a collective and as a people, that I think that it just goes right into this, us saying, recognizing that we at war, and with that recognition, knowing that now that I'm at war, I have to realize that there's going to always be spies, and the whole point of that is to again be able to predetermine and have a preemptive attack to your battle strategy. Not your tactics, but your battle strategy, and that kind of goes into the concept of the application itself is what becomes the secret weapon, as opposed to knowing that you got a bomb is how you go about using that. And that
Mm,
goes into the cleverness and the ingenuity of being a visionary, which is some of the things we lack because of what Dr. Casey said about our inability to deal with healing first. Because
Mhm.
once we deal with healing, and I go into that from a perspective of trifactor, healing the individual, healing the family, and then healing the community. And by approaching it from that standpoint, what we deal with is we deal with now to where we reset and recalibrate ourselves within the right framework and the right mentality to be able to now go into something with a solution based approach as opposed being going into it with an emotional charge. It's kind of like ending on the same thing I started with Kanye. I think the reason why he's exposing the whole the quote unquote Jews that run the industry is because out of his pain. I don't think he's tactically or strategically coming at them, Dr. Casey, from the standpoint of real wanting to really expose them. He's exposing them because he's hurt. And
Mhm.
so because he's doing it because he hurt, it ain't gonna end up with him, uh coming at this from any strategic position of actually having an impact. It's just him speaking again off of retaliation, off of being reactionary, going into what you were saying stated earlier. And I want the world to feel my pain, which is
Mhm.
again what I talked about earlier when I said people we need to have not have the mentality to where the reason we mobilize is because something had happened to us,
Mhm.
but for us to be preemptive and progressive about when we want stuff to stop, going back to standing my ground and saying enough is enough and moving forward. This will not happen to me, and this will not happen to the family. This will not happen to our community. And standing at it from that standpoint is when we really make significant changes. And again, going back to the boycott thing, now all of a sudden we are seeing our power. And as we see our power, we are then able to step to the table of power and make demands. But you can't make demands coming from a position of a victim and expect anything that has a foundational lasting approach to happen, because yeah, you get individual justice for certain people, but you will not change the institution of racism, the institution of oppression from
Mhm.
that angle. Only power would get you that position of power.
Hey, thank both of you for your time, especially you, Dr. Casey. Good seeing you back. Brother Williams, I'll see you next week. And I did appreciate those two videos that you sent me. One of
Yeah,
my brother's first jobs was with Brother M.
yeah,
So, yeah, he made a way for a lot of young black
right,
artists back during his day. So I appreciate those.
right.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and look forward to talking to you next Monday here on another Imperfect Union. Have a great
Okay,
night.
I'll
See
follow.
ya.